This year marked 2 decades since Julia and Max exchanged their vows. Their life together, though stable, had settled into a predictable routine, lacking the spark it once held. They shared their home with their daughter, Kate, who was thriving in her second year at university. Kate's independence filled Julia and Max with pride. She had secured a spot in a prestigious program through her own merit and excelled in her studies. Julia, a lecturer at the same university, never interfered in Kate's academic journey, maintaining a professional distance. Among Kate's peers was Mark, a charismatic young man whose confidence seemed to outshine his years. His charm drew attention, including unexpectedly Julia's. Despite the age difference, there was something about him that captivated her. However, Mark's academic performance was lackluster. After submitting a subpar paper in Julia's class, he lingered after a lecture to speak with her. Kate waited, unaware, in the hallway. With a nod toward the door, Mark suggested they talk privately. As the door closed, Julia, organizing her notes, mentioned the shortcomings of his paper, encouraging him to dig deeper. But when Mark stepped closer, too close, her words faltered. His intense gaze stirred unease in her, yet also something else. Something she hadn't felt in years. A flush crept across her face. With a sly smile, Mark left, tossing back, "Don't doubt what I can do, Julia." The encounter haunted Julia for days, leaving her rattled, ashamed, and inexplicably stirred. It reminded her of the early days with Max, when every look set her heart racing. Now, their marriage was a comfortable habit, and she wondered if routine was all that bound them. Over the next few weeks, Mark's behavior kept her off balance, sometimes distant, other times locking eyes in a way that sent her thoughts reeling. She began to question why this student consumed her mind, and why part of her craved to know how he saw her. Her imagination blurred the lines of their teacher-student dynamic. During a seminar, Julia faltered mid-lecture, distracted by Mark's presence. As the class ended, she impulsively asked him to stay behind. He settled into a chair, exuding calm confidence. "Have you thought about it?" he asked, his voice low. "Thought about what?" she replied, confused. "What I'm capable of," he said, his hands brushing against her thigh. That moment marked the end of their classroom encounters. Julia locked the door, surrendering to the pull she could no longer resist. Their secret affair unfolded over a month, stolen moments in empty offices or after lectures. Outside the university they were strangers. Julia, married and a professor, had no intention of going public. Mark, however, grew restless, urging her to leave Max, convinced she no longer loved her husband. Whenever he pressed, Julia dodged, citing reasons she couldn't share. But Mark persisted, noticing Kate's growing interest in him. He saw an opportunity. Feigning friendship, he asked to visit Kate after an evening walk. Eager and oblivious, Kate invited him for dinner without telling her parents. When Julia saw Mark in her home, her heart stopped. His bold gaze carried a silent challenge. Dinner was torturous. Julia barely spoke, terrified Mark might reveal their secret. He played it safe, choosing his words carefully, but his presence screamed intent. Kate, smitten with her charming classmate, was unaware that he was using her to stay close to her mother. Days later, after another clandestine meeting, Mark again pushed Julia to leave her family. "Enough, Mark. Accept what we have or it's over," she said, yanking her skirt free in frustration. Furious, he stormed out, vowing she'd regret it. His retaliation was swift. He turned to Kate, claiming he'd always cared for her. Kate, already infatuated, fell hard, unaware of his deceit. A week later, Julia noticed Kate's studies slipping. The truth dawned. Mark was manipulating her daughter. She begged him to stop, but the next morning brought a nightmare. Entering her classroom, Julia froze at the sight of red markers scrawled across the blackboard. "Do you prefer them younger?" Whispers and smirks filled the room. She erased it, frantic, scanning for Kate, who was absent. The rumors had spread, and Mark was behind them. Julia found Kate by a window, eyes downcast. Before she could speak, Kate fled, humiliated. At home, Julia tried to comfort her, but Kate recoiled. "I know everything," she said, her voice breaking. "What's happening?" Max appeared, phone in hand, his face unreadable. "Kate, give us a moment," he said. But Kate, sensing something, grabbed his phone. Her gasp shattered the silence. On the screen was a photo Mark had sent, a compromising image of him and Julia. Kate dropped the phone and ran, slamming the door behind her. Max stared at the phone, his voice cold. "You need to go." Tears streaming, Julia couldn't move. In one night, her world collapsed. The divorce was swift, silent, and final. Neither Max nor Kate reached out. Julia clung to her job, grateful the scandal hadn't reached her superiors. But the campus felt hostile, every glance heavy with judgment. Mark, his revenge satisfied, eased off. In her brokenness, Julia drifted back to him, seeking solace in their tainted connection. The affair resumed, but it was hollow, a fleeting shield against her pain. Doubt gnawed at her. Could something so wrong endure? Mark's attention soon wandered to a younger woman, unburdened by scandal. When he left for good, Julia was left alone with her regret. The affair had been an escape from a life that felt stifling, but it cost her everything. Her marriage, her daughter's trust, and her sense of self. Guilt couldn't undo the past. What was shattered remained broken. And Julia, once the anchor of her family, stood alone in the wreckage.